Start. Il manque une minute, 1 minute to go.
And since winning the world title, Adrie van der Poel has had his most outstanding season as a world champion cyclocross rider, already the winner of the World Cup, and with one event to go in the Super Prestige Trophy, he's won that as well. Here we are now in Munich. The last time we were here was in the year 1985. It was all snow then. Well, it is bitterly cold, but the snow at the moment has gone. Van der Poel is on the start line, as are indeed all of the champions of the national countries. This should be a great championship, Paul, but it will be a very different one to the course we had in Montreux.
Most certainly, it is very cold out there, and I think the fact that the frost has been so hard will make this course very tricky indeed. A lot of adverse cambers, and these riders on the start line lining up in their positions of the World Cup, which, as you can see, Adrie van der Poel is on the right-hand side, and for the first time defending his World Championship title.
Well, the winners in 1985 are Mike Kluge for the amateurs and Klaus-Peter Thaler for the professionals. Both German, of course, and the Germans will be delighted if they could get such a result now. And they're off, and the man at the front there, number 2, is Wim de Vos, the new champion of the Netherlands, and that was something of a surprise at the National Championships. Now facing up to 7 laps of this 3-kilometre circuit. It's going to be very fast and furious, and the Italians coming through on the move straight away. That's Bramati on the attack. Seems they're at it again.
Also very much matched by the 2 Belgian riders. Eric Verweken, he's moved up into 2nd position. A little bit further back, the national champion of that country, Paul Herriger. But still, the 3 orange jerseys of the Dutch. The Dutchmen this year really have dominated the world of cyclocross, and they realise now as they swing out of the stadium for the first time that they must stay in the first 4 or 5 positions, because this course this afternoon is very tricky indeed.
Out of the tunnel as they leave the stadium, the Munich Stadium, which was the scene of the Olympic Games, those very sad Olympic Games back in 1972. Now we're looking at a much happier occasion, the World Cyclocross Championship. More than 60 riders are filing away out onto the circuit. The Italians are obviously throwing down the gauntlet, as they did a year ago, determined at some stage to try and pick up a World Championship.
Going to have to come up against the men in orange, though. They really have dominated this year. This is Richard Gruendahl on the front. A little bit further back in the orange jersey of the Netherlands is Adrie van der Poel, the outgoing champion. First obstacles of this year's championship, and already in 2nd and 3rd position there. We've got a problem with the cameraman trying to get one of the early mechanics out of the way. This is such an important part of the course. In fact, the mechanics getting in front of the television cameras there, realizing that a mechanical incident at this stage of the game could really lose you the title.
Well, there's the shot of all the riders with their bikes on their shoulders. They go up that steep climb, and still it's Pontoni now who's got himself to the front with Bramati. It sounds a rather familiar commentary, this, doesn't it? But the 2 Italians are right up there once more. You can see how frozen that lake is. It is bitterly cold here. Everybody's standing on the lake as the World Championship goes by.
And for the first time, I think, in many years, we get a chance to see a Spanish rider at the head of affairs in the World Championship cyclocross event. Davide Seco is tackling the first run-up, and you can see it has in fact melted a little bit overnight, making it very tough underfoot for these riders. One of the big regrets for the Germans, though, is the big Mike Kluge is not at the start line. He won the amateur version back in 1985, but a winter season dogged by injury had him pulling out just 2 weeks before the event took place.
Seco was lapped on the last lap by the medalists 1 year ago in Paris, and now it looks like he's in trouble again. He slipped away very rapidly from the action as the 2 Italians get to grips with the furs and start to pile on the pressure. Look at them riding this slope here, and riding it with some great distinction as they come through very, very clean indeed. Bramati and Pontoni, and the adverse camber there is absolutely treacherous, and they're leaning desperately. Look at this though, it's Gruendahl, I think, has a little bit of trouble holding the bike upright around that left-hander.
Well, for a little bit of clarification, that white material you can see on the course there, in fact, is sawdust that has been put down by the organisers, because in fact they were a little bit worried about the frost that has been on the course for the last 3 or 4 days. But a glorious afternoon here in Munich has melted it out a little bit, and these 2 Italians really are mastering this course, and I'm amazed to see that after a mere 3.5 minutes of this race, they've opened up quite a remarkable gap already. Bramati at the front, sitting in 2nd position, is Daniele Pontoni.
Well, perhaps things are swinging because this year the Italians have not dominated the Super Prestige in the World Cup competition. In fact, it's been the Dutch with Richard Groenendaal and Adrie van der Poel who won virtually all of the World Cup races and helped themselves to a mass of the Super Prestige as well. Bramati has one victory in Super Prestige and Pontoni has one as well. In fact, Bramati has two and Pontoni one, but that's all they've got out of the Prestige Championship. But now they've decided to save perhaps the best till the end. There you can see the sawdust, the riders spurning it, taking to the rough ride again. And they have opened up a tremendous gap straight away with pure strength here.
Well, a complete change to the conditions last year. These two riders looking very comfortable indeed. Now it's the turn of Pontoni to set the pace on the front. He's shadowed by his own countrymate Bramati, and they've opened up a lead of around about 10 seconds, and so quickly it's quite a remarkable feat. You can see these two riders, they are very good at the techniques, and they ride very high up in the corner here to keep as much speed as possible so they can launch themselves onto the harder tarmac surface of the course, and away they accelerate into the forest.
Well, this time the tandem appears to have worked well because Daniel Pontoni setting the pace with Bramati in second position. Pontoni, by the way, coming to these championships with his 9th consecutive Italian Cyclocross Championship as both amateur and as a senior rider. And Bramati has never won the Italian Championship, although he has taken a number of medals and plenty of places in the first 4 finishes.
Well, Phil, as we look down the main field here, trying to keep up with those Italians, information coming to us, in fact, that Adrie van der Poel was involved in a crash in the very first lap of this event. He's gone down and is a long way down the field. In fact, there he is, I think, just going out of the camera view there. He's going to have a hard job to try and pull himself back into this race. A sad event, I think, for Adrie van der Poel because he's had most magnificent form this winter, and if he can get himself back up, well, he will have done a ride that really would merit a gold medal.
So Van der Poel, remember, he is now 37 years of age and not looking like slowing down. He's won both of the sport's major trophies this winter as a world champion, should I suppose, but getting something like $2,500 for each race he started in the World Series as world champion. And now it looks as though he's going to have to fight from the depths of the big field if he's going to catch up with the two riders he took on so successfully 1 year ago at Montreuil. All of the pacemaking being done at the moment by, I was about to say by Daniel Pontoni. He seemed to lose his back wheel. His teammate's gone through. By goodness me, Paul, he's recovered quickly.
Very quickly indeed as he goes through the first pit section. I think he's recovered quite dramatically there. In fact, he's gone through, he's refused to take a spare bicycle from, but let's just have a look exactly how he went down there. This is a cambered part of the course here. His back wheel slid, but you saw the control he had. He didn't lose his footing. He managed to get off the bicycle and was away very quickly indeed. This is Darius Gill from Poland coming through there. There's Richard Groenendaal, and in fact with straight handlebars riding for Switzerland, the very good mountain bike rider Thomas Frischnecht.
Well, Thomas Frischnecht, who is really the star mountain biker these days and looking to be in a little bit of trouble with the rest of them right now because the Italians are doing a lot of damage here, and trying to go clear is Bramati. So Pontoni has disappeared from our cameras while we were looking at the main field. There is Pontoni dropping back. He may not have recovered as quickly as we thought from that slip.
I think he probably lost his nerve a little bit as he goes down this technical part of the course there. He had 1 foot out to control himself, and a crash like that just loses your breath a little bit. You know, you tends to push the heart rate up a little bit higher. Coming through now is Wim de Vos for the Netherlands in 3rd position on the course. There is Darius Gill of Poland, and moving up then as well is Richard Groenendaal in 5th place. But no sign for the moment of the defending world champion Adrie van der Poel.
And there's a lot of gaps here. There's Van der Poel, number 1, taking it very, very gently down that very difficult descent as the two riders go out towards the end of this opening lap. The two Italians looking over the shoulder just to see what a different race this is to 1 year ago, because there's a long, long way back to the rest of the field right now.
Well, I think, in fact, Bramati may well have sat up there, Phil, and waited for Pontoni to come back up to him, because these two riders, realizing that the sport of cyclocross is an effort dosed over 1 hour normally, and the best thing for them to do in the early part of the course is, at least on these very rideable parts of the circuit, is to help each other. And straight away, in fact, it's Bramati going straight through to the front, putting the effort on. The two of these riders coming into the stadium for the first time. When they cross the line, they will face another 7 laps of this very tricky and treacherous course here in the Munich Olympia Park.
So into the beautiful Olympic Stadium here, and two Italians are heading the race by some considerable distance, and at the moment We've got Pontoni and Bramati in that order as they come around the stadium. And just look at the speed and acceleration here as third into the track now. And this looks as though it's Wim de Vos has come through, the champion of Holland, living up to his new title. It was a surprise when he beat Groenendaal and Van der Poel. But even so, he's now riding like the champion of the Netherlands. But this is the tandem which is causing chaos yet again at a World Championship as they complete their opening lap. They now face 7 more circuits. And look at the time, Paul, 9 minutes. It's making it a very difficult route.
Well, 9 minutes covered and a very good time gap as well. 10 seconds to the chasing group of 2 riders, Wim de Vos, the Dutch champion, and Darius Gil from Poland. And coming across in 5th place, Richard Groenendaal. But the man doing a great ride there in 6th position on the road is Thomas Frischnecht.
In fact, Frischnecht is moving up through the field here. He's an extraordinary rider. Even better than his father, Peter Frischnecht, who did so well as a world cyclocross rider. But of course, in Peter's day, there was no mountain bike racing as well. And there is a little close-up of this very, very ugly adverse cambered right-hand bend that is causing all sorts of problems here. As passing through our lens there was one of the American riders who dropped out of our sight. I think it might have been Kevin Merrigan or Dale Knapp. But anyway, they're having to learn cyclocrossing the hard way. We're now looking at the experts here. They've rutted out this little step up, and just as well they have as well. The 2 Italians are making fast trots up the hill, swinging back onto the bike. Cheers from the pits, but they are really making this race a little bit of a formality at the moment. They've broken the spirit in the first lap this year, which is what they tried to do last year, and they didn't manage it.
They're certainly looking very comfortable, but tricky indeed as Erwin Verweken goes down off his bike at the bottom of this run-up. He's on the back of this leading group of what looks to be like around about 12 riders. But these 2 men at the front, Pontoni and Bramati, are certainly causing a lot of anguish.
Well, it's becoming a challenge between the 2 of them, and which one is going to become the king of Italy, because since Renato Longo, there hasn't been too many victories coming the way of the Italians. The 2 that spring to mind is Vito Titano, and a couple of years ago Pontoni won the Amateur World Championships in Leeds in Great Britain. Now the Italians have got themselves onto the front. Are we going to see the start of a season of more Italian victories around the world in not just cyclocross but in road racing as well? There's the chase group of Wim de Vos still riding a National Championships World Championship, staying right up with the action. But these 2 have got it just right at the moment. They always find the strength to ride this steep part of the hill, even though a little bit of trouble there for Bramati as he came around the corner.
The speed these 2 riders are attaining, Phil, on a course like this really is quite remarkable. They've got this course right down to a T. A chance there to look at the 2 chasers. There is Wim de Vos coming round that corner. You see these riders almost coming to a standstill at the top of that little ride up there. And de Vos has got his foot down here. Doesn't look quite as comfortable as the 2 leading Italians as he comes here up to the run up there. A little slip as well. It is really quite boggy. There's confirmation at the end of lap 1. Luca Bramati and Pontoni over the line in first position with 10 seconds over the 2 chasers, de Vos and Darius Gil.
Well, this is one of the best rides by Darius Gil as far as starts go. A very promising junior who's always been near the top but never quite at the top of world cyclocross racing as an elite rider. But now he's made an excellent beginning. But these 2 have made the beginning, there's no doubt about that. Pontoni doing the driving and Bramati following, a very familiar one too for all Italian followers of cyclocross. There's the chase group, and Wim de Vos is still out on his own. Well, not on his own, but with Darius Gil, and these 2 well clear of the 5th man. And it looks like Frischnecht, he's trying to get across here. You can recognize him with those straight handlebars. A little bit of a legacy from his mountain bike days, don't forget. And look at this, in fact, Paul Pontoni is going away from his teammate by just keeping the rhythm going and stamping on those pedals, and Pontoni has cracked Bramati at the moment.
Well, he obviously couldn't follow the pace. In fact, I thought Bramati waited for Pontoni on the first lap there, but now that he's opened up that gas pedal, he really has got quite a lead over his own teammate. He's decided now that, in fact, Bramati couldn't stay with him, so he's opened up the gap and decided to go it alone. That's a very risky thing to do in the world of cyclocross racing, because he's got to ride now basically a time trial, and he's still got more than 40 minutes racing in his legs.
Well, he's obviously full of confidence. Their teammates who also concentrate on mountain biking, they both rode in the Olympic Games, and Pontoni, whilst being up there for a while, finished 5th, and then Bramati came home in 8th place in Atlanta. But now we're looking at Pontoni here, trying to ride away to a lone victory in the World Cyclocross Championships. He's still facing up to 5 more laps of the circuit once we get back into the stadium. And the Swiss, and this is Dieter Runkel just disappearing from sight, are not really having much luck at all.
And neither, in fact, is the man wearing number 1 this year, just going through there more than a minute behind Adrie van der Poel.
But he is coming back, Paul, because that fall pushed him right down the rankings, and he is making progress. Whether he will ever see these two leaders again is highly doubtful now, not unless they make a mistake, and Pontoni is set to run this race alone, straight over the top of the planks, back in the saddle in one lovely fluid movement. You can see the ice on the left of the side there, and Pontoni finding his way safely around. As I say, conditions here well below freezing, but the Italians are relishing the conditions. What a change it is to 1985, when I was in this stadium for the World Cyclocross Championships and we were meters deep in snow.
That, in fact, was the time that Adrie van der Poel got his first medal at this discipline, the silver medal, just behind Klaus-Peter Thaler, a very good German rider there. You can see there starting to suffer a little bit, taking too many risks, I feel, at the moment. Pontoni losing his line around that corner, but recovering well to accelerate again. And you see he's using all of the course here, going from left to right to try and keep a very comfortable line around these corners. Coming up now to the pits. In fact, Bramati is at the moment trailing at around about 15 seconds, refusing the bike change, and we get a long wait now till we see the next chasers coming through. And Will Frischknecht have made contact? I'm not sure. He looked very comfortable indeed. This is De Vos on his own in 3rd position. There is Frischknecht in the red jersey of the Swiss team, and coming back a little bit further down there as well is Darius Gill, now starting to fade.
And so the two Swiss on the straight handlebars are pushing forward. Dieter Runkel and Frischknecht, they are the riders who split up. Darius Gill, who's falling away from the action. But this man isn't caring what is going on behind him, because he is riding his own little trail around the Olympic Park here. And it looks as though Pontoni is going to remain in a very strong position here. They're going to have to come to him if they want to catch up, that's for sure. He's very delicate, so too Bramati down the side. Wim de Vos continues to surprise everybody as he is producing the ride of the Dutch team right now. But the proximity of Frischknecht and Runkel, I would think, is going to cause some concern.
Well, De Vos not quite as agile as a man like Adrie van der Poel on a course like this, but very strong indeed as we look back down the rest of the field. And in fact, they really are starting to open up the gaps on everybody concerned. And Adrie van der Poel trailing at over 1 minute and 5 seconds at the moment, so he really will have to do something special if he's going to get back into contention. But the man at the front, Daniele Pontoni, is riding away with the competition, and I wonder, Phil, if he's got the energy to stay at the head of affairs, because he still needs to look at another 5 more laps alone, which for him is going to be a very long time trial indeed.
Well, a little bit of a side slip as well as he slipped on the ice of the surface. He's heading now towards the completion of his second full lap here, which had been taking 9 minutes a lap. Now it'll be interesting to see the time for this lap for Pontoni into the tunnel, out onto the stadium. This is the tunnel they used for the finish of the marathon in the Olympic Games in 1972. Now we're seeing Daniel Pontoni onto the asphalt circuit, racing around. This is going to be a much quicker lap indeed. 9 minutes the first time, so it'll be inside 9 minutes, I think, as he comes around the stadium. Daniel Pontoni here, now holding on to quite a few seconds advantage over the other rider, Bramati, and showing absolutely every little bit of aggression he can muster here. There is Wim de Vos, running quickly over the boards, but not with the same fluidity at all as the Italian.
Well, coming up there, Bramati in 2nd position. He's almost 15 seconds behind there. In fact, the clock ticking by. 17 seconds is the gap. It was a very fast second lap indeed. 8 minutes and 12 seconds. And we're waiting now to see just exactly what the time split is going to be to Wim de Vos, a very strong cyclocross rider indeed. He comes across at 30 seconds and not very far back. In fact, given the same time, Thomas Frischknecht opting to ride those straight handlebars, looking very comfortable and a lot further back. Many of the other riders in this event. This is the former world champion from Switzerland, Dieter Runkel, and we get a chance here to see what is one of the very trickiest parts of the course here. You see all of these riders losing their back wheels going round there. This, in fact, is one of the German riders, Ralf Berner, coming to grief in that corner. In fact, one of the Dutch riders before him had gone down as well, Marcel Gerritsen. Very tricky corner indeed, but these things are not having any effect on the progress, in fact, of the man at the front of this race, Daniel Pontoni, who's comfortably away through the pits there with a very clean change. Daniel Pontoni is very fluid indeed as he goes over those bunny hops, but in fact he's just lost his gearing a little bit there. His foot came out of the pedal, suffering a bit. That's obviously due to the fact there's a bit of mud getting into those cleats, and he's trying to get himself back into some form of rhythm. Looking over his shoulder, he'll be getting information from the side of the road to let him know that in fact his lead is hovering around about the 24-25 second mark over his own countrymate Luca Bramati, and a little bit further back Thomas Frischnecht is making a remarkable comeback.
Well, this is Bramati sprinting into the stadium. It's strange looking at an empty stadium, but of course all of the spectators are out around the course. They'll be flooding back in here for the finish, as now Bramati comes round to complete his lap. He's got 3 seconds to go. He is aware, I think, that Frischnecht is chasing him. 24 seconds since Pontoni went through, and now Bramati has a fight on his hands at least, because the Swiss star is out to get him. And remember that Frischnecht is becoming known as the eternal second of world cycling, because he was second in the Olympic Games. He just seems to finish second in most things he rides at the minute.
But he was in fact the world champion at cyclocross back in 1991. Coming across the line now is Wim de Vos. He had a very good start, and Van der Poel a lot further back, and I'm sure in fact Bramati must be thinking now back to that second lap there where he in fact was riding alongside Pontoni at the front of affairs. I think he had a little bit of a bad patch, and then he was blown out by this man who's really piling the pressure on at the moment.
This is the gaggle of action at the back, being led by Adrie van der Poel, who is only just off the pace now. He is fighting his way back into this championship, and he still might get a medal.
And you can see just how difficult it is further down the course there as these riders starting to struggle. There's confirmation at the end of lap 4. Pontoni and Bramati in first and second place still, as since the start of the event. And looking a little bit further back, the outgoing world champion from 1995, Dieter Runkel, is in 7th, and the bronze medalist Beat Wabel, he's lying in 8th place.
2.5 laps to go to the finish for Daniele Pontoni, and memories now beginning to flood back in of his victory, his only other victory in the World Cyclocross Championship, which came when he was an amateur in Leeds, where on that occasion he managed to come home and he finished in front of Dieter Runkel of Czechoslovakia and Thomas Frischnecht. And it's Frischnecht right now who looks to be the most likely to improve. But first of all, Frischnecht has got to get on terms with Luca Bramati. Here's Bramati, and it looks at the moment as though things might be going his way, because I haven't seen the wheels of Frischnecht right behind him.
Well, you can see the difference in the two styles. He really is struggling compared to the ease with which Pontoni is going over that muddy section there. He's using all the upper part of his body, trying to use a slightly bigger gear to get some traction in this mud as he comes up the very hard uphill part of the course.
Well, the crowd here enjoying it. German sport, very, very popular, and cycling plays its part, especially after the Germans had their telecom team have such a successful Tour de France, and their new star on the road, Jan Ullrich, finishing second in the Tour. Now there's the chase by Frischnecht. He is feeling very frisky now, and this is a little bit of spot of trouble here for the Americans at the back of the field, and just losing his wheel tracks there and falling out of contention. It looks to me as though it's Craig Undum who's disappeared under the barrier.
Well, he tried to stay on track there, but he couldn't quite do it, and getting right underneath the Gonzo sign, he won't know exactly what's going on at the front of affairs. And in fact, Daniele Pontoni still opening up a very good lead, but Thomas Frischnecht made a great comeback there and moves himself up into the second position now with Luca Bramati on the road as we go to the very fast part of the course here, and still one man setting the pace at the head of affairs. He really has ridden remarkably. Let's not forget that this man has been undefeated as national champion of his country for 9 years. This year in 1997 he took his 9th consecutive title in all age groups of the sport. You can also see how he's trying to ride to the outside of the course as well, because in an event like this, the middle of the course gets churned up and gets very difficult indeed. He switches across to where the barriers are, because that's where the course is just a little bit harder, to try and get that much more traction, to try and keep himself going forward in a nice smooth motion.
But it's a nice feeling for him because he knows, oh, and he's lost it, and in fact, it's under the barriers for him now, so that's not the way to exit a World Championship. And the World Champion-elect, and that's what he surely is right now, was quickly back on his bike and back into the race itself. So Bramati, who, my goodness me, he's in the same situation here. I was about to say may have gathered a little bit of time on him, but I think he's lost it there. This is what happened to Pontoni. Checked the back wheel on this treacherous bend, and once the bike skids away out of control, he was lucky to get out of the saddle first, but he's under the barrier there. Anyway, he's back in the race, and he's back on a championship winning course.
Well, that could in fact be a spelling towards the end, because you know he may well in fact have caused himself a little bit of a scare there. You see these two riders now are together. Frischneck taking it very careful indeed round that corner. These riders know this is the tricky part of the circuit, making sure that he stays in contact with Bramati. Two chasers now, and lying in 4th place out on the road in the orange jersey from the Netherlands, Wim de Vos, the national champion of that country. He too taking that corner very gingerly indeed. These riders realizing just how slippy it's starting to get.
Into the stadium again, and then he's going to be left with just 2 circuits to go, but he's not riding with the speed that he had just a lap or so back.
Well, for the first time, starting to look a little bit laboured indeed as he looks across his shoulders. Maybe not quite the confidence he had earlier on. Those 2 little scuffles there probably scared him somewhat. Looks very much to me like the only Korean rider in the event there. Kim Sai-bo coming through. He'll be a lap behind now. Looks across and gets the chance to see just exactly what it's like at the top of the sport of cyclocross as we go through with 2 laps to go for Daniele Pontoni.
And he goes out of the stadium. This is Wim de Vos coming in. He's lying in 4th place, I think, at the minute. This is now the battle for 2nd, and in 2nd place, and just taking it, is Frischneck. And so Bramati has a problem here. He won the bronze medal last year, and now he's going to fight for a similar position this year if he can't get over the top of the former Swiss world champion. Frischneck perhaps proving the worth of those straight handlebars and just bringing in a little bit of mountain bike technique into cyclocross.
Well, several riders this year opting for the straight handlebars. They were first adopted last year, I think, by Miguel Martinez in the under-23 title. 45 seconds, that's still a very big deficit to make up as Wim de Vos comes through in 5th position and then 4th position, and in 5th position the man making the super comeback, Adrie van der Poel, who is in fact 57 seconds behind, but he's come all the way through the field into that place, and it may well be that he's going to come up with a last-minute recovery.
The remarkable Adrie fighting back into the frame. There's no way he's going to pick up the leader on the course, unless, of course, Pontoni makes another mistake like he made last lap when he disappeared out under the barriers.
Well, this is the time when riders start to make very silly mistakes. You can see now Bramati has moved up into 2nd position ahead of Frischneck. De Vos in fact has now had his chance of catching up, and it looks as if Adrie van der Poel has disappeared a little bit from this leading group, and it looks now as if we're going to have a chasing group of 3. But van der Poel, there he was in the orange jersey, has moved himself back up. If he can just get onto the back of this leading group, then we're going to have a very different race indeed.
Well, there he is, number 1, defending world champion, back in the saddle. And this is turning out to be quite a race for 2nd place now. I thought it was cut and dry when Frischneck reached Bramati, but Wim de Vos is having none of it. He is revitalised with the Dutch Championship and he's fighting back into the frame here. It's still Bramati who is setting the pace, and it looks to me as though he's giving Frischneck a little bit of a hard time.
Strange, in fact, to see Bramati chasing, because we do have an Italian leader. Normally on an event like this, if you do have a countryman in the front, you would force the opposition to try and take up the pace setting. But what he's trying to do is stay at the front so that he can pick his way around all of these obstacles. But Thomas Frischneck looks very comfortable indeed. You see he was very quickly onto that bike there, but I don't think he's quite got the power from those straight handlebars as the normal regular handlebars which are being used by the real cyclocross men. Pontoni there at the end of the 5th lap goes ahead in 1st position. 45 seconds is the gap to the next 2 riders. De Vos came through in 4th, 52 seconds further back, and Adrie van der Poel just at 57 seconds.
And the rest beginning to fall well away now. Look at them, all over a minute, and that's far too much with just 1.5 laps left to go in the World Championship here in Munich for 1997. Peter Frischneck, who has done just about everything since he became a star of world cyclocross riding as a junior.
Pontoni is still at the head of affairs. He's been able to pick his way around this course very easily indeed. Nobody to hamper him on his way around these corners. He's been able to use the best part of the course. You see here, he goes right away to the left-hand side of the course there so he can stay on the hard part of this corner. He goes down, lets the brakes off, goes up the banking a little bit to keep as much momentum as possible, not wasting energy at all, keeping himself fresh and using all of the right lines around these corners as Frischknecht with the straight handlebars there comes to the very tough part of the course now. We're starting to get a lot of mud here and the riders really having to dig deep to try and keep their pedals going over.
Well, where we just saw Frischknecht trying to push on the pedals there was the part of the course where Pontoni managed to shed himself of his teammate Bramati, and I'm wondering if in fact Thomas Frischknecht there was trying to get away, and there it is. Look, the gap is there, so Bramati has lost a bit of ground, exactly the same point where he conceded to his teammate. Now, can Frischknecht possibly hammer it home? And I don't think he can, because Bramati is being extremely tenacious, and once on the good road, he's gone straight back up to Thomas Frischknecht.
Well, you saw there how he just let the brakes off, picked up as much speed as possible, took a wider angle around that course, but it gave him just the momentum to get back into the slipstream of Thomas Frischknecht. Thomas obviously would like to get rid of the Italian, feels that he may well be hampering him a little bit because he won't help him at all on the easier parts of the course, on the tarmac, and once they get into the stadium. But once again, Bramati has found a little bit of strength from somewhere to get into the slipstream of Thomas Frischknecht.
Well, Frischknecht, who held his arrival to form just before these championships with a fine second place in the Super Prestige Trophy round number 8 at Wetzikon in Switzerland, has now timed his form to perfection, but I think he's mistimed the result of this race because he's allowed Pontoni to get away far too well. And not even too sure at the moment whether he can handle Bramati, because he's not leaving him. Pontoni's slipping and sliding a little bit here in the lead group, but he's got the time now on his side to make mistakes. He's concentrating hard. Just take a look at his face, but this man really, he never does give you any impression as to exactly how he is feeling.
Chance there to see, in fact, how conditions have changed here this afternoon. It started off being very hard conditions indeed, very fast opening laps, but now as the afternoon sun has started to melt this course a little bit, it is starting to get slippy out there, and you can see Pontoni here struggling a little bit, looking for the hardest part of the course, realizing now that he is starting to get bogged down in middle parts of this course, and you see switching across to where the barriers are so he can be with the crowds where the hardest part of the course is. And Thomas Frischknecht now looking very comfortable indeed on those straight handlebars. I think in the tricky parts of the course he has a lot more control, but maybe not quite so much on the uphill sections. This is the corner where Pontoni went down before, taking it a lot more carefully this time, realizing that he can't go down there full gas, making sure that this error doesn't come up, because he realizes as time is ticking by now, he's looking much more like the world champion.
Yes, but psychologically I think this is the lap that he's really not enjoying. Once he gets round to the bell, he'll feel a little bit more inspired, knowing he hasn't got to go around this course once more. Pontoni at the moment, I think, is living on the fact he has a big lead. He is not looking as fluid as he was a few laps ago. And these two either are also in trouble. Bramati has got himself back in control of young Frischknecht and trying to keep him back there in that third place on the course. This is such a difficult bend, and the leg stuck out at right angles there, but at least he kept Frischknecht on the bike.
Well, Phil, in fact, that time gap there coming down now. 45 seconds last time over the finish line, and there it was down to 39 seconds. So obviously it looks as if Pontoni is starting to take it a little bit more carefully in the front. As we look at one of the American riders coming through here, it may well be that he will be looking for a pit stop this time, because he is about to get lapped, and Dale Knapp, in fact, has been caught and passed by the leader, Daniele Pontoni, who's coming up now, and he'll be listening for a very nice sound of the bell.
In fact, it was Craig Undem, Paul. I just caught a glimpse of his number there, and he was the man that went under the barriers, so at least he can say he did something that Pontoni did in this course, because they both went under the barriers at the same point, but they are at opposite ends of this World Championship. Well, it'll be the bell this time for Daniele Pontoni, and he's struggling now to find his rhythm, but he's accelerating again. This is going to be a crucial start to this last lap for him. He won't want to see his lead come down anymore. He has lost a few seconds. He'll may be able to gain what he's lost as he exits from the stadium, because the other riders should be coming in. He's looking right across just to see if they've made any progress. There's the clock starting to count. He goes out now onto his final lap while they're into the stadium. He will know now exactly where they are, because he will have seen them come onto the back of this circuit. And it's Bramati leading Frischknecht.
Both still looking very comfortable, still got good reflexes. They go over the bunny hops there and fluidly back onto their machines, looking over their shoulder to see if the reaction will come from the Dutch duo behind Wim de Vos and Adrie van der Poel, who are trying to stay in contention, trying to get themselves a medal at this World Championship. But Frischneck now taking up the control, looking very comfortable indeed, looks across just to try and see what kind of reaction there is going to be behind. 42 seconds the gap to the leader Pontoni, so it's gone out again by just a couple of seconds.
Here's Pontoni. There he is flicking across the gear change, but his bike now quite clearly covered in a lot of mud here because this course has begun to cut up, and he'll be looking for the pit stop this time round to get a fresh bike, all nicely washed by the mechanics as he runs up these rather difficult steps because of the spacing of them. You can only take short strides, and there's the bike change at the top, and now the clean bike should be enough to carry him to a world title. And there's a lot of debris around the course now, but this man, Daniele Pontoni, who has led virtually from the start, that was the order through the lines. They went out onto the final circuit. Frischneck ahead of Bramati. Wim de Vos has ridden superbly for 4th place, and he might just finish outside of the medals. To the descent here now. He's picking up rider after rider, Daniele Pontoni. And those riders get only a brief moment to check out who is coming through. This is how it's done by the less experts of the course, as they find that the adverse cambers a little bit more like a skating rink, and it's where you can do the odd new movement in ballet dancing, I think.
Well, Peter wedged it right under the barriers there as he went down for Canada. We get a chance to see just how some of the big boys are handling these very tricky conditions indeed. This in the red jersey from Switzerland is Thomas Frischneck. Do you see how he controls that back wheel, locks it up a little bit, puts his foot out in a very dramatic position there just to try and keep a little bit of stability.
And here is one of the German riders here is also having a problem. And a big problem because he's the 3rd man to make his exit under the same barriers, and that's poor old Ralph Berner. Back up with the, well, not the leaders, but the silver and the bronze medalists, because Bramati here, and this is where Frischneck always seems to run up onto the shoulder of Bramati, although that time he was unable to get quite level with him. So Luca Bramati is still showing quite a lot of defiance here on Frischneck, but if it comes to a sprint in the stadium, then I would put my money, I think, on Frischneck.
Well, Pontoni here having a little bit of trouble too, coming into this bottom corner there. You see he was locking up his wheels. These riders now starting to get a little bit of fatigue, starting to make mistakes, and if he makes a mistake like that, the 2 riders who are chasing him may very well come back up to catch this man in the very fast lap. I did notice there, in fact, that Adrie van der Poel has now moved up into 4th position.
Well, Van der Poel, nothing short of superb here. Van der Poel just came past one of the American riders, and he's gone up into 4th. And remember, he's climbed from the depth of this competition, and probably if we only could sort of analyze his lap times, I think we'd find that Adrie really was on a championship winning ride had he got a first shot at the race leader today. But Pontoni, we can't take any of the day from him. He's been simply superb, and having been in the thick of the action 1 year ago, this time he's made all of the action, and once he shed himself of his teammate Bramati, he has just stayed out front. He's hampered a little bit by his riding over these last 2 laps, but I think it's not going to stop him taking the title. But the question of who will take silver and who will take bronze, that is very much open to conjecture.
Well, the gap coming down again, down to 36 seconds for the 2 chasers, Bramati and Frischneck, but now Pontoni must certainly be getting strength, because he knows as he goes round this course, every time he comes to one of these corners, he will be handling it for the very last time, and he will gain strength by the fact of he's knowing that he's been at the front for an awful long time. He's been around this corner, he hasn't made too many mistakes, and he realizes that the work has got to be done behind, because those 2 riders must really pull out something special if they're going to close down the gap on the very fast lap. You see now Frischneck under a bit of pressure there from Bramati. Bramati, in fact, was opening up quite a bit, but the man that they can't quite get up to is the lone leader, Daniele Pontoni. Lets the brakes off there, full speed down that corner there, around it very carefully. We've got the chasers now trying to close down the last few seconds. This is the corner where, in fact, Bramati has been very good indeed, hampered by a lap rider there. He didn't quite get the impetus, and that is just giving Thomas Frischneck the chance to get back in there. The rider there from Ukraine is a lap behind, so we still have just 2 chasers.
Well, I'm quite sure Frischneck will have shouted something to get the Ukraine rider to move over, because he was anxious to get onto the back wheel of Bramati. He's got himself back into the race here. But Bramati is a very determined rider. He has thrown a lot into trying to shed himself of Thomas Frischknecht, and so far without avail. He's got to rid himself of Frischknecht, because I'm sure in the stadium Frischknecht will produce the sprint, although I'm not too sure, Paul, how those straight handlebars will affect his sprint.
Well, I think that will be a very difficult one for him, because you can just get so much power out with the corn handlebars that these other riders are using here, and if it does come down to a sprint for second place, it's going to be a very difficult one for Frischknecht indeed. And don't forget, in fact, that Adrie van der Poel is starting to close down quite dramatically on those two riders. He's only about 12 seconds behind the two riders who are chasing in second and third position at the moment.
This is the battle for the two minor medals, and still Bramati is setting the pace. Both men off the bikes, and running right up to his shoulder now is Frischknecht, who learnt his trade from his father. His father was a brilliant cyclocross rider, Peter Frischknecht. He won 3 silver medals and 2 bronze medals, but he never got a gold medal. He was unlucky, I think, to live through the era of the great Swiss star Albert Zweifel, which kept him away from the gold medals. But even so, Peter has watched his son Thomas go from strength to strength and be even better than he was.
Pontoni looks to have picked up a little bit of speed now. He realizes that there's not very far for him to go. He's got a little bit more courage and a little bit more conviction in the way he's negotiating these corners, realizing now that he's still holding around about 25 seconds advantage over the two chasers, and Frischknecht taking a few risks there to try and stay in the slipstream of Bramati, while at the front Bramati himself is trying to just put a bit of pressure around those corners and cause a little mistake.
Pontoni still as expressionless as ever. This is the corner he's grown to dislike. He's taking it with much more caution now, and why shouldn't he? He's got the gap, he's no need to take risks. These two, though, I wonder how they're going to take the corner, because the one that would make the mistake this time on that bend would certainly lose the next place. A little slip wheel there for Bramati, which allowed Frischknecht to pile on the pressure, but every time he comes up to the shoulder of Bramati, he cannot get by him, because the Italian just pushes him to the back again.
Psychological warfare, Phil. They're fighting against each other with nerves at the moment. In fact, Frischknecht is trying to come up alongside Bramati to put him under pressure every time, maybe forcing him to make a mistake. He'd like to get into the pole position here so that he can pick his way around the corners, but out almost now in the shadow of the stadium, the man who most certainly now must take the title, Daniele Pontoni, who can see the stadium in front of him. He knows nobody's behind him. He's just got to keep going over the last few meters of this event this afternoon.
And so the capital of Bavaria, Munich, a beautiful city, has provided us with a great world champion here in Daniele Pontoni. A little dress rehearsal there before he goes in to the tunnel. And he will come out onto the stadium, and he'll have just 3/4 of a lap and a couple of jumps over the planks, and this will be his first elite world championship. He's going to salute, I think, all the way round to the line here. Let's hope he doesn't forget to jump across the planks. But in fact, they've taken the planks away for the last lap, so he's got a freedom of the stadium here to enjoy the finish. Daniele Pontoni, the last time he won the world title was the amateur world title in Leeds in Great Britain, and that was back in 1992. But this will confirm him as a great cyclocross rider, the best one that the Italians have had since Renato Longo, who was the real superstar, and he is really enjoying this. Pontoni gets the world title. A couple of lapped riders around him, but Pontoni off his bike for the last time, into the hands of his relatives, but this one won't be such a formality. And look at the sprint of Thomas Frischknecht, so perhaps the straight handlebars will work. Frischknecht now holding steady round that bend, keeping the power on the pedal so he doesn't slide out of the stadium. Once in the straight, he kicks for it, and it's the bronze medal for the second year for Luca Bramati, and I think he has a right to feel a little bit disappointed, because he rode so well this year. Frischknecht gets the silver medal. The world champion will be the Italian Daniele Pontoni, and there he is, and he will now prepare to receive the rainbow jersey. And so as the riders will come in for many, many minutes yet, the man who destroyed them all, Daniele Pontoni of Italy, having broken clear almost from the gun with his teammate, and in the end going clear to win by 23 seconds ahead of Frischknecht, Luca Bramati third, and Adrie van der Poel an excellent fourth after that crash so early on.
Daniele Pontoni, Italy.
So the white jersey of world champion for Daniela Pontoni. He now walks in the footsteps of the last world champion, Vito D'Etano, and himself, of course, as an amateur. And before that, the great Renato Longo. Italy are on the march again, and 1997 has only just begun. I hope you've enjoyed this coverage of the World Cyclocross Championships brought to you by World Cycling Productions. I'm Phil Liggett saying for Paul Sherwen, goodbye.